Now move from anecdotes to elite wealth composition. In UBS 2024 Billionaire Database, 877 billionaires were self-made, and 605 were multi-generational. That's not a world in which wealth is overwhelmingly frozen in bloodlines. It is a world in which extreme fortune are still primarily created by first-generation entrepreneurs, even as great inheritance they begins to arrive. The same report invokes William Nordhaus' famous estimate that roughly 98% of the value of innovation goes to society and 2% to the innovator. You can dispute the precision. You cannot miss the point. Capitalist fortune, when genuinely earned, is ordinarily a silver of social value created, not a hereditary toll built on national output. The academic evidence on American top fortunes points the same way. Stephen Kaplan and Joshua Rao, examining the Forbes 400 over 3 decades, found that the richest Americans in recent years didn't grow up as advantaged as in the previous decades. They were more likely to have started their businesses and to have grown up upper middle class, not wealthy. In another piece, Kaplan and also Rao argued that the Forbes 400 are less likely than before to have inherited their wealth or to have grown up wealthy. Again, this is not a fairy tale about perfect merit. It is a blunt empirical point. The commanding heights of capitalist wealth are repeatedly repopulated by new people. Aristocracy hates repopulation. Markets institutionalize it. And the same is true of corporate power, of course. I mean, Fortune reported in 2024 that only 49 companies have appeared in every Fortune 500 ranking since the list began in 1955. I said it multiple times. Think about that. Over 70 annual ranking, only 49 survived the test of staying large enough, relevant enough, and profitable enough to remain in the club every single year. Even the loser standard of the S&P 500, the average tenure of companies has kept failing, with one 2026 chart-based Insight data putting it around 14 years. That is not what bloodline privilege looks like, apparently to me at least. That is what relentless selection pressure looks like. So no, capitalism is not a custom drama in which yesterday's dukes become today's board chair and rule forever. Some fortunes persist. Some family firms are brilliantly governed. Some heirs are competent. Good for them. The point is not that inheritance disappears. The point is that inheritance is not sovereign. It enters a field of competition, consumer preference, technological change, and managerial competence that can erase it astonishingly fast. A feudal title can survive an idiot. A market fortune usually cannot. So, um, I believe I've talked about this multiple times. I love this term. It's the term coined by Joseph Schumpeter. He's an Austrian economist, School of Economy. The term is the creative destruction. And creative destruction is the anti-feudal principle. I mean, this is the heart of the matter. Feudal and patrimonial orders that treat wealth as downstream from power. Capitalism treats wealth as downstream from performance within a legal framework. When critics say capitalism resembles feudalism, they erase the distinction between those two logics. That's not a small mistake, that is the entire question. Consider the Ottoman practice of musadere, the confiscation of estates or dismissed or deceased official, right? Recent scholarship describes it explicitly as a tool of governance. One LSE working paper on the Ottoman Empire between the years of 1715 to 1839 shows the confiscation of elite property as a selective but enduring political instrument, targeting targeting office holders and tax farmers, while another Oxford abstract calls confiscation a marker of despotism. and a fiscal and a political tool. That is what wealth under arbitrary power looks like. It can be rich today and stripped tomorrow because your wealth never fully stops belonging to the ruler. That is the anti capitalist principle in its pure form. Now, contrast that with an institutional logic identified by Daron Acemoglu, Simon Johnson, and James Robinson, the logic that won the 2024 Nobel Prize in Economic Science. The Nobel capitalists say that their work showed that societies with poor rule of law and institutions that exploit the population do not generate growth or change for the better. In Acemoglu's framework, growth-friendly economic institutions emerge and political institutions allocate power to groups with interest in broad-based property right enforcement and create effective constraints on power holders. In the opposite case, hereditary monarchy, concentrated power, arbitrary expropriation, rulers expropriate producers, impose arbitrary taxation, um, renege on debt, and allocate rescues to allies. That's feudalism. That's extraction. That's the exact opposite of what a capitalist order requires. So here is the moral frame. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights doesn't read like a feudal charter, right? Article 1 says that human beings are born free and equal in the dignity and rights. Article 17 says everyone has the right to own property and no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of it. Article 23 says everyone has the right to work and to free choice of employment. That's not a manifesto for collective Caesar or hereditary privilege. It's a moral defense of the person as an end in themselves, able to choose, own, contract, and labor without being politically rationed into a station, right? Capitalism is not the whole of that moral vision, but it is the economic system that best fits it. So the Nobel Committee in 2025 made the point even more explicit. In its press release on creative destruction, it stated that when a new and better product enters the market, the older firms lose out and warned that without upholding the mechanisms underlying creative destruction, we fall back into stagnation. That sentence is dynamite. It means that every pain critics often attribute to capitalism, like disruption, failure, turnover, replacement, is precisely what makes capitalism anti-feudal. Aristocracy wants the incumbent protected because incumbent is the order. Capitalism protects the process, not the incumbents. It permits the newcomer to kill the comfortable. That is why it produced turbulence, right? That is also why it produced modernity.